Hey everybody, welcome back to The Hustle. It's John Lamoureux. Okay, this week we're talking to Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, keyboardist Tony Kaye. Now, here's Tony's story in a nutshell. You're going to hear a lot of this, obviously, in a minute. So he's one of the founding members of Yes. He's there for the first 3 albums. They're starting to find their sound, really creating something special and different. By the 4th album, he starts to feel like he's sort of unsatisfied with where the band is going. So he leaves, and he's replaced with Rick Wakeman. And that's when they put out Fragile, and they really get huge. Well, he goes on to form other bands. He forms a band called Badger. He joins up with Michael DeBar in Detective. You guys remember that band? He tours with Bowie. He joins the very tail end of Badfinger. What's funny, or at least I think it's kind of funny, I hope he does too, is that there are times in Tony's career where he gives up music entirely to go play tennis, or he gives up a musical career to go sell t-shirts. He just really is a guy, I think, who does what he wants and probably doesn't feel like putting up with a lot of crap. And as we all know, unfortunately, and yes, there's a lot of crap. Well, in the early 80s, he gets back sort of in touch with Chris Squire. They form the Cinema Project, which I think you know becomes the 80s version of Yes. So Tony's back for 90125. And Big Generator and Union and Talk, so he's there for the full decade. And then he sort of decides to leave again. As I think most listeners know, that period in the 80s of Yes, especially, Trevor Horn, especially everything he did, that's some of my favorite music that's ever been made. So of course I want to hear all about the creation of 90125, but especially Big Generator, because we don't talk about that album very often. Since then, he's been sort of doing his own thing, and that's the really important part here. He put out his first solo album just a few months ago called End of Innocence. And what it is his, I don't know if tribute is the right word, but it's his take on 9/11. It's an album that conveys the feelings that were going on that day. Fear, trauma, death, but also first responders. It's his musical take on everything that was taking place. And it's a very, very unique piece of work. It's largely instrumental, as you might imagine, coming from Tony. There's some singing on there done by his wife. And it's just a very unique piece of work that I would encourage everyone to check out. Obviously, this album just recently came out to commemorate, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So we kick off talking about that. And then we get into all this other stuff. There's a ton. I will say, he and I actually recorded this interview a couple of months ago, and the file got messed up. And folks, I am telling you, there is no worse feeling in the world when you've just had a fantastic interview with someone you love that was spontaneous and funny and engaging, and the recording doesn't work. So bless his heart, he allowed me. We did it again. And hopefully we recaptured some of that magic. Okay? Anyway, Tony called me from his home outside of Tampa, Florida. All right, so let's start with End of Innocence. I think it's very unique that this is the project you thought you needed to go all in on. Why did you feel that way? I mean, we all feel strongly about 9/11, but what caused you to create music about it?
Well, I hadn't really got a perfect vehicle to write about in the past. It was really as simple as that. There was no, Dark Side of the Moon had been written, mm-hmm. Six Wives of Henry VIII, and mm-hmm. It was like, well, I got to come up with something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And of course, life went on, Yes went on, tours went on, moving went on, everything got in the way of really sort of, doing something that I was really proud of. And then, of course, 9/11 happened, and it just really inspired me it affected, obviously, a lot of people in all kinds of different ways, but it inspired me I was sitting in my house in Los Angeles, and all my keyboard, I hadn't played in probably 5 or 6 years. Mm. And my keyboards were in flat cases in the garage, and it was a very hot day, and I really hadn't been inspired to unpack anything or play. I didn't really want to play, so it was just one of those times. And I went out the following day. I went to the garage and unpacked my keyboards. And actually, I had no stands. I put them on boxes, and. And I had no recording equipment. Of course, I had no digital equipment. I hadn't graduated to digital performer, and I had an 8-track cassette player, which I set up. That was the start of it. In fact, a couple of the tracks that are on the album were from that day, and actually started on an 8-track cassette player. The 9/11 Overture was which is the second track on the album, was the first track that I played.
Really?
Basically, the keyboards were set to sort of orchestral type stuff, and I just sat down and started playing, and there it was, piano and orchestra. And,
now, is it called 9/11 Overture when you sit down to write this thing? I mean, or are these songs that are in your head, and afterwards you think, or maybe during the process, like, you know what, this is reminding me of 9/11, or I'd like to put this under the umbrella of 9/11. Or when you're writing, are you like, 9/11's heavy on my heart right now. I'm going to write how I feel.
Yeah, they were all written specifically with that day in mind.
Okay.
I realized very quickly that if I was going to write an album, which I was thinking of at the time, I was just writing about particular parts of that day. I mean, we were up at 5:30 and it lasted all day.
Yeah.
And everything happened, in that 24 hours, really.
Yeah.
And I knew that everything that I wrote had a particular meaning to, what had gone with what happened with the planes, with what happened with the Pentagon, with what, of course, I wasn't thinking about titles or what it was. All that came later.
Yeah. Now, there's the song Hope and Triumph on there. which is one of the few that has any lyrics. I don't remember her name. The name of the lady that sings that song. It's so beautiful.
The name of the lady that sings that is Danny Torsher.
That's right.
And of course, she became my wife.
That's right. Okay.
Which was an amazing thing.
Lucky you.
That happened. Yeah,
that's right.
Me. We met two weeks after 9/11.
Really?
A friend introduced me, to her, and we started. She's a guitar player, musician, singer, songwriter, and we started sort of writing little things and collaborating on her music, and probably I don't know a month after, I said, I have this feeling I can't really write about it. I don't know what to write about because it was something that wasn't particularly direct to that day. It was the footage of the first responders and the police.
Oh wow!
And I said, this has got to be written about lyrically and with a song. Can you write something? And she wrote Sweetest Dreams.
Inside I feel like crying through the night. There's just a little thread of hope I hold on to. I guess it's faith that keeps me getting through. And in those hours when I feel so all alone, you take my hand and gently guide me. Every breath you take inside of me, it guides my vision so my purpose I can see.
By that time, I had my studio. I brought the studio into the house and kind of set it up, properly. But still, I had no recording equipment, and we recorded it on the 8-track cassette recorder, and that's how it is. That's one of the tracks that remained 8-track cassette. I added a few things later, but basically, that track sort of stayed the same, which is amazing.
So
all that time ago.
What's the fate of this album? I mean, I'm not a big enough prog, devotee to know if there are radio stations that play this music. Is it going to be background music in documentaries about 9/11? Are you going to tour it? What's the fate? Where does it go?
I have no idea, and it wasn't written to be per se a commercial success. It was just written for me, and all these years later, I got together 2 years ago with Yes again, and played with them on the 50th anniversary, and went on the Yes couple of Yes cruises and whatnot, and gradually sort of got back involved with the band. Of course, it was great playing with Billy and Jay, who I played. Billy was my partner in Circa. And
right.
So it was great to sort of play shows with them, get back, see Steve again and Alan, and got sort of involved with their management, and Martin Darville, who really was the instigator of actually finishing the album. He said he heard the original thing, which was actually something I put to. It was about 40 minutes of music that I put to video. It was always, in my mind that it was a visual thing. I wanted, the music to be it was a visual thing. It was it happened visually, and of course, sort of 2008 or whatever it was. I more or less mastered iMovie, and for the first time, we novices could actually edit visuals, video. So I did about 40 minutes, put it up on YouTube. He saw that and said, you really ought to think about bringing out an album and actually finishing it, making it a complete album. So he really, and yes, with the sort of inspiration for actually finishing it. Of course, COVID had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I believe it.
I moved after shortly after doing the S tour and the cruises. I decided to move from LA to Florida. Mm-hmm. So there was a great sort of change in our lives, and a whole different town and state and whatnot. Yeah. And then I shortly after that, COVID happened, and I set up my studio and sort of, got down to the nuts and bolts of finishing it, mixing it, and
yeah. Well, it's really beautiful, and I hope people find a way to discover it, whether it be through streaming or buying or whatever. I should say, I believe part of the proceeds of this, anyway, go to the Gary Sinise Foundation, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Yes, what made you choose that?
I was a fan of Gary.
Yeah.
I kept seeing him on TV. Obviously, we're probably all fans of his as an actor, and but he does incredible work, for the military and first
a lot
responders.
Of fantastic veterans work behind the scenes.
Really, I wanted to. Originally for the video, the YouTube video, I dedicated it to the first responders. So it was automatic when I finished it that I did something the same, but in a realistic way. And Gary was the first person I thought of.
Okay. That's great. I hope people get a chance to check it out. Okay, let's go back. I want to talk about the rest of your career too. So obviously, I know, here's the fun part. Now, I feel I'm probably not a true Yes fan because the 80s Yes is my favorite part. And that's 90125 and Big Generator are two of my favorite albums of all time. I did have a question, though, about the beginning. Is it true, or I think I read this somewhere, did you leave Yes, or were you kicked out of Yes over not wanting to use a Moog? Is that right? Or wanting to use more Hammond than they were comfortable with, or something like that?
Yeah, I didn't go to John one day or John and Chris one day and say that I hated mini Moogs and Mellotrons. It was more of a gradual thing than that. I wasn't very specific about. It was just starting to happen. Yeah, these new instruments coming out, and of course I was a crazy Hammond player. Hammond was my first love, and quite honestly, they really didn't sound that good to me. I mean, really, they sort of sounded out of tune, and they were a bit screechy, and the pure sounds of of piano and Hammond organ really was a far away from these new keyboards. So yes, I wasn't particularly interested in bringing them into the picture.
Okay.
And even though on the Yes album, I think there was probably a little Moog, and we had the cathedral organ
Right.
at the end of Scene of the People and whatnot. I was not, but it was a lot more complicated than that, and it was not really the only thing.
Sure.
I had started. Yes, music is sort of, back then anyway, it was a sort of a quiet taste in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I enjoyed playing with the band, and it was great because in the beginning we had no original music, and we were playing all those Beatles.
Yes, the cover of America. Oh my gosh.
Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. I've got some real estate here in my bag, so we put a pack of cigarettes on Mrs. Wagner's pies. To look for America. I said as we boarded a Greyhound in Pittsburgh.
So good.
They were all weird arrangements.
Yes.
Of, which really was the beginning of the complexity of what Yes became.
Yeah.
And it was actually, fun playing in those days, but, it just got, I don't know, and after a couple of tours of America, I was really sort of digging American music. I'd always been a sort of blues rock fan, but certainly being, and I love the band. The band was my favorite band at that time.
The band.
How can you?
Yeah.
How can you not like and
Sure.
avoid the band? And it wasn't really high on the rest of the guys' musical priorities, but for me, and I really wanted the band to sort of go in a more of a rock direction in a way. Although there were tracks, Yours Is No Disgrace, and
absolutely.
Yesterday a morning came, a smile upon your face. Caesar's palace, morning glory, city, human race. On a sailing ship to nowhere, leaving any place. If the summer
Starship Trooper. And, I mean,
Sure.
they were pretty rocky tracks, and still are. You know,
Yeah.
we still play them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was certainly a gradual thing, and of course I had a band. I had a band together with David Foster, who was John Anderson's original
Songwriting
songwriter
partner,
partner.
right? Yep.
Yeah, on the first two albums. So
Yeah.
we had this thing together, and we had a band that actually became Badger or was
Right.
Badger, and recorded a live album with Yes.
If the world has got you down, and it's more than you can take, you can't get your feet back on the ground. All you need is that lucky break. If your pockets are empty, if the wind blows you, let you down, don't let you down. You gotta hang loose, get ready for the wheel to turn around. If you've lost the only love you had, and you think you got a reason to be sad.
Let me ask a sort of pointed question, Tony. I'm curious about. You seem to sort of flit in and out of projects. Like Yes comes along and it starts to get big, and you start to get restless, maybe artistically, personally, whatever. And so you go and start another band, and that lasts for a little while, and then you hook up with Detective and with Badfinger and Bowie and all this kind of stuff. Are you more comfortable when things are smaller, maybe, and more manageable? Or, and I ask this because it just seems like rock stars, almost all of them aspire just to be as big and widespread and accepted as possible. But I get the feeling that you're different than that. You're kind of like, I want to keep this small. As long as I'm satisfying my creative itch, that's good enough for me. I don't need the rest.
I don't think it's particularly that I like it small. I certainly like to play and to be with people that I really like.
Yeah,
And
that's probably it.
and that
Yeah,
I want to be with, and I'm actual friends with.
yeah,
I mean, honestly, if I could have stayed in David Bowie's band, I would have been very happy.
yes. Yeah.
But of course, David swapped musicians all the time.
Yeah.
But I was more than content in playing with David's band. They were just great people, great guys, and a great band. And
They
of
sure
course,
were.
a big concert situation.
Mhm. Yeah. That damn
it was really
trio
fun.
of Carlos and Dennis and George are they're three of the best musicians ever, and they all play together in under one guy making fantastic music, and you're there. My understanding is that you got the call to join this like the night before, right? What's this? And you didn't play on a Bowie album,
Yes.
but you played on the Station to Station tour, right? Tell us the story about this.
Well, I had decided to. Badger had sort of fallen apart. I went to New Orleans to record the second Badger album. Got back to London. Nothing really happened with it. It wasn't the right thing, and the band had changed, and it was. So I just decided to get up and leave. Of course, I'd been in America for. I was in New Orleans for 9 months. And toured and been to Los Angeles, and I thought, I think I need to get out of London and probably find somewhere else to live. So I got on a plane and landed in L.A. with actually one friend, and who had a clothing store on the Sunset Strip, Granny Fixer Trip. So I had someone there, and I checked into the Hyatt House, the Wright House on Sunset, and just happened to be in the suite next to John Bonham, which was probably,
Party all the time.
Probably a mistake.
But I think it led to you getting sober eventually, so maybe there's a silver lining there. But I can't imagine partying with Bonham.
Yes, it was. He was an inspiration for me. I won't go into the details, but getting sober is probably a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And we were down. We were at the Rainbow Bar and Grill every night, and then I won't say I was an instigator for him leaving, but he did have to leave Hollywood. It was important for him to get out. So he left. I left the Riot and rented an apartment and sort of went into how shall we delicately put it, a detox situation. Because hanging out with Bonham was pretty intense.
Yeah, I bet.
So at the end of that, it was my birthday, and my friend Freddie from Granny's decided to have a birthday party for me at the Rainbow. And it had been a while since I'd been there. Got there, sat down, had a few drinks, and David's tour manager came over. I didn't know that he was actually with David. I knew him from London. He was Jimi Hendrix's tour manager. And so he came and sat down, and the first thing he said was, "Can you be on a plane tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, what is it?" And he said, "A limousine will pick you up at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you want to do it, get in the car."
Yeah.
So it happened. I had no idea. I had no idea what it was. And 12 hours later, I was in Jamaica at Keith Richards' house. And there was David and Carlos and George and Dennis. Yeah, it was.
Oh my gosh!
It was quite a thing, really.
That's amazing. While you're on tour with David, obviously this is kind of, I think, like the height of a lot of his drug use, but I'm imagining it's good times. I can't imagine how it couldn't be a good time with Carlos around because he's the best. When you're playing, what song are you most excited to dive into on a night-by-night basis? Is there something that showcased you where you had a really good solo? Or the band was tightest? What's your favorite thing? No, not
really. There were jams that went on, especially at the beginning, because actually the beginning was we actually never knew when David was coming out, and the lights would go up and we'd start playing and. What is that song?
Station to Station, isn't it? That's got the really long intro.
It could be Stay. Was it Stay?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, Stay. That's got that great kind of almost disco guitar lick that I'm guessing is...
yes.
Well, no, I think it's Adrian Belew. Was Adrian Belew on that tour too?
No.
No, okay, so it was Carlos.
No, the guitar player was Stacey Hayden.
Oh, sure.
A guitar player from Canada. But who originally played on it? Maybe it was Adrian.
I think it was.
I don't know. Maybe it was Carlos.
I just couldn't remember who was on that tour.
So we. It's a great song to jam to.
Yeah.
And the band was just kicking ass from the word go.
Yeah.
Until David came out, and of course, when David came out, the place went completely nuts.
So great.
So that whole show was from the lights to the way David was, because he was. I guess he had the sort of reputation that he was sort of a little bit ragged, living in L.A., doing probably too much.
Yeah,
And,
cocaine and peppers and milk.
Yeah,
that's it.
And he comes out in a waistcoat, white shirt, and red hair, and looking like this sort of character from Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, people were just amazed by his transformation.
I bet. Oh, what a period that must have been. It's a shame it couldn't last longer.
It was a great time. I mean, I can't say anything. Coming from Yes, which was sort of a little bit all over the place, and it was and David's band was so tight and so funky and so great to play with that it was amazing.
Yeah, different experience. Okay, so Yes. Now, when you come back to Yes in the 80s, as I said, this is one of my favorite periods of any band's music ever. My understanding is that you and Trevor Horn don't get along too well. And he's one of my favorite producers ever, but he can be, I think, very meticulous and fussy maybe. How were you enjoying being back in a band? And I think too that you and Chris were gonna do that cinema project, and little by little it just becomes bigger and bigger. John Anderson comes back, Trevor hops on. Now it's Yes. Now there's big expectations. Did you ever feel like this isn't what I signed up for? Or were you having a good enough time that it was okay?
Well, it started with the guys getting together. I had met playing in Badfinger, actually recording the last Badfinger album in Miami, and I had rented a house, which just by chance happened to be the house next door to Chris's family. His wife Nikki and the kids, and of course when the band came to town, Chris and I hooked up and had a few drinks together, and he said, I met this guy Trevor Rabin. He's really good. And he lives in L.A. So when you get back there, you should hook up with him.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened. And Chris always had a plan. So, that was his plan. He knew that band with Horn going to be around for and he had other plans. So that's what happened. Trevor and I got together and we flew over, and we had a rehearsal place, Alan, and actually Trevor Horn, because Chris and Trevor Horn were pretty good friends, he was going to be the singer. And, it just really didn't work out.
Yeah.
And really it was not really playing, Yes 70s songs. We were playing Trevor's 80s songs. So it was obvious that Trevor Rabin should be singing his own songs, because mostly what we were playing were his songs.
Right.
So it didn't really work out. But by the time we got to the studio, I didn't really connect with Horn, and I'm sure that for what had gone on before, he probably wanted Jeff to be in the band.
I didn't think about that. Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't think about it either. I just knew that.
He is famous for replacing band members with his own posse of people that he likes to work with better, and
Exactly.
no one's none the
Yeah.
wiser. I could see that. I didn't even think about that. You're right.
But
Yeah.
of course, at the same time, Asia was
Riding
on the
high?
horizon.
Yeah, they were.
And
Yeah.
Asia was happening. In fact, Raven had auditioned for Asia when Chris met him.
Really?
He was going to be the guitar player, and of course, you know, two guitars,
Yeah.
Steve Howe and Raven, probably was not the best thing
No.
to happen.
I'm guessing
And,
Steve Howe is thinking, I don't need anyone else doing guitar but me. I got this covered, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
always. Yeah, that is Steve's approach.
That's probably why
quite
GTR
rightly
didn't
so,
last too long.
actually.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I had a question about 90125 on Owner of a Lonely Heart, obviously a huge hit. Every song on there is fantastic.
Move yourself. You always live your life, never thinking of the future. Prove yourself. You are the move you make. Take your chances, win or loser. See yourself. You are the steps you take. You, and that's the only way. Shake yourself. Your every move you make. So the story goes. Owner of a lonely heart. Owner of a lonely heart. Owner of a broken heart. Owner of a lonely heart. Say you don't want to chance it. You've been hurt so before. Watch it now. Eagle in the sky. How he dancing.
Do you have a hand in the creation of that song? And specifically, you know, it sounds like a normal song, and then there's these bursts of diddly-doo, you know, these like synthesizer bursts in the middle of the song here and there. And I wonder, is that you playing those little bursts? And if so, whose idea was it to insert them into the song? You know what we need here is this little burst
Well,
of
we had-
diddly-doo. And Tony, can you take care of that?
We had a synclavier in the studio, and of course, back then, no one knew really what to do with a synclavier. It had cows, mooing sounds, and thunder and lightning, and so it was, but it was obviously, an instrument for sampling anything, and eventually those things, those samples in Owner of a Lonely Heart were from a James Brown cassette, and they were just sort of accidentally sampled onto the synclavier.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And Alan, right at that time, the rest of the album had been recorded, but for some reason, really no one wanted to record Owner of a Lonely Heart. It was a total last minute
Crazy
thing. I had been trying to get the band to play it since I first heard it, right at the beginning of cinema, but no one thought that it was really, in the Yes music vein.
Yeah.
And so it was left out. So Alan started messing around. I actually left the band right at that point.
Really?
I couldn't sort of stand the vibe at that time.
Yeah.
And, with horn, and it was not a particularly creative time. And well, I'd been involved with Badfinger, and Badfinger were doing a tour. And so I was involved with that, and went back to the States to, of course, it was not meant to be because Tony Tommy died, and the tour was canceled. So
I was wondering,
yeah,
I was
so
thinking about that. I mean, obviously that's just tragic, and Badfinger still a band that don't get the credit they deserve for being as awesome as they were. But in getting ready to talk to you, I'm thinking if Tommy doesn't kill himself and you go on tour with them instead, your involvement in the '80s version of Yes comes to a close, likely right there. That's it. You know?
oh yeah, yeah. It was completely up in the air. I mean, I just of course John wasn't in the band. It was still cinema, and it was
Yeah.
still a very little deal with no money involved, and I just went back home and actually started a t-shirt business.
Oh, that's right.
That's what
What did
that's
they
what
say? Like I'm
happened.
was stupid, or what? What's the T-shirt business?
I don't know how I got into it, but I was being English. The whole concept of swap meets was really
Oh, sure.
a really fun thing for
Uh
me,
huh.
and so I started going to swap meets, and I thought, I could probably make some money here. This is
I'm
thousands
not
of
going to make any
people
money
at the
as a
Rose
rock
Bowl.
star. I'm going to go to a swap meet
Yeah,
and sell
really.
T-shirts.
Yeah, I
That's
think
better, more lucrative.
I need to change direction here. So I got this concept of Disney characters and rock and roll characters on the front of T-shirts, and
Wow.
that's what I did. And
Wow.
actually, at the Rose Bowl, one afternoon, sitting waiting for people to buy my T-shirts, I heard the guitar intro of "Oh Never Lonely Heart," and I thought, I think I know that. And during the course of the afternoon, I think it was played maybe 30 times.
Oh.
And
Oh.
yeah, and I remember thinking, oh, I think this is a hit.
Yes.
That's a drag.
Yeah. Maybe T-shirts
And
don't sound so good after all. Maybe we should go back to Yes.
yes, I mean, it was only a few days really after that Trevor phoned and said, "Do you want to go on the road?" And
Yeah.
I thought, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
this, with a number one single, this could be
Yes.
fun.
Didn't
So
you
yeah,
didn't you leave music at one point earlier to become a professional tennis player?
oh no, not a no. I was too old to be
Okay.
a professional tennis player,
I
but
read that somewhere and I just
I
thought
had
he quits being a rock star to
no,
become a tennis star. It's just that simple.
no. I would have, just as John McEnroe said to me later, when I got involved with playing tennis with the tennis guys, I wanted to become a rock and roll star.
Mm,
I
mm.
said, I think I would like to have been a professional tennis player too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I wasn't good. I played tournaments, local tournaments, and then I got involved with Vitas and John and
Yeah.
Brad Gilbert, and we did the Make a Wish tennis
Uh-huh.
music thing.
Wild.
So yeah, I got to meet my
That's great.
favorite tennis players in the '80s, which was great.
That's great. Okay, I want to talk. Let's talk about Big Generator for a minute. 90125 comes out. It's gigantic. It takes 3 or 4 years for Big Generator to come out. How are you guys feeling? Are you thinking we've got a lot of pressure to meet the same level of success that we just had? Because I really like that album and Love Will Find a Way and Rhythm of Love. These are great songs, great singles. They didn't quite reach the same heights, but is that album viewed as a disappointment? Or are you guys just as happy with it? What are your recollections of Big Generator?
I liked Big Generator. I thought it
Yeah.
was obviously it was a little late in a follow up
Mm-hmm.
to 9125, and we knew that it took a long time to write and to make, and the band was pretty dysfunctional, really,
Yeah.
at the time, because that, in a way, that's the way the band is.
Yeah.
It's not very. It's not a band that does things properly.
Yeah. You can tell. People coming in and out,
yeah,
revolving
so-
door. Yeah.
Yeah, the revolving door and albums that took forever to make, and the band decided to go to Italy and record in a castle because the drum sound was
Oh my
going to be
gosh.
fantastic.
Oh man. Oh man.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Those are the days.
It was pretty weird, and then people dissatisfied with Trevor Horn, and
Yeah.
going to London, and then ending up in Los Angeles, and because really in a lot of ways, because of the success of 90125, it really became Trevor's album. It was his follow-up, really.
Right.
And even though we had co-written, I had co-written songs with him, "Shoot High" and
Yeah. I'm Running is maybe my favorite song on that album.
Yeah, "I'm Running" was a great track.
Jacaranda, help me out tomorrow. Jacaranda, don't wanna be alone. Keep falling over, a spell that brings this sorrow. Give and take, you shouldn't be afraid. So you give me this big story, it breaks me every day. The challenge is to chase the sound just to break away. And I'm running. Yes, I'm
He actually wanted us to take control of the album.
Uh-huh.
So we ended up in Los Angeles, and that took a long time to.
Okay.
To
He's known
finish.
for that.
So
He's known for that. He's a kind of a mad scientist that takes his time. There's a lot of
who
bands.
Raven?
No, oh, I'm sorry. No, Trevor Horn. I thought we were talking about Trevor Horn. I guess we're talking about Trevor Rabin.
Oh no. Trevor had departed
Okay.
from the scene quite 9 months before.
Okay.
It didn't really work out going back to London to Trevor Horn's studio. So
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Okay.
So we went back to LA and
Yeah.
actually co-produced it with the guy who did the Mr. album.
Oh, yeah.
which
Oh, I
was
love
really-
that album too.
Yeah, it's really hot at the time. We went to his studio, and Trevor Rabin. I know it gets a little confusing with the Trevors, but
I've got it mixed up.
So he took over, and So
Okay,
yeah, it took
that's
a
it.
long time.
Got it.
But I really like the album.
I do too.
I was just before you phoned. I was looking at a live video in Hollywood, Florida, of
Whoa.
Shoot High and Low.
Just as the sun was rising in the mist, we were all alone. So fast this expedition, so fast this heavy load. With a touch of love and a sense of
Really?
And yeah, and it sounded really good.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised. It was actually a fun tour.
Good.
Yeah, did the whole
Yeah.
album.
One of my other favorite songs on there is Almost Like Love.
Who was it organizer right to follow my leader? See, we look and stand around waiting for a sign from God. Speaking for myself, the Christian need the Muslim need the Buddhist need to testify the need for brotherly love. I know there's so many hundred things to talk about, making us laugh just like a Shakespeare revolution. Please organize a spiritual evolution so that you feel it and we'll feel it, appreciate it. It's almost like love. It's almost like love. It's almost like love. It's almost like love. Say no sinner makes no difference in who you believe in a world of superstition, cult and total nuclear greed. Pioneers of the 21st
It sounds like it's got horns playing in it, but I'm guessing those are synth horns. And if they are, did you play those synth horns?
Yeah, I instigated that song almost like
Really?
and yes, and it's actually not one of my favorite songs. But,
Ah, too bad. I love it.
yeah, I was the sort of instigator on a drum machine and a keyboard, and we started to play it. It's kind of an up tempo thing, and
Yeah.
and everyone liked it, and actually was probably better played live on stage. It had that sort of intro that was with the horn section. And,
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
yeah, I
Okay.
think we started. I didn't. I think we started the Big Generator tour with Almost Like Love.
Really? Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I never got to see Yes back in the heyday. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and bands just didn't come through Salt Lake City very often. And so I finally saw the Anderson, Wakeman, Rabin tour a few years ago, and that's it. That's my only experience with Yes, unfortunately. I've always felt kind of bummed about
Oh,
that.
so you missed
I missed all of it.
you missed a lot.
I
You
did.
missed all of it.
I mean, I've been a fan ever since 90125. I've been a fan of the music, so I've got like the Yes box set and all this kind of stuff. But as far as seeing live, no one ever came through Salt Lake City, so I never got to see it.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I love Salt Lake.
Well, thank you. Thanks for saying that. A lot of people don't go through there, don't make it a priority. Okay, let's talk about Union for a second, because my understanding is that in spite of the name, this is being unified is what this album is not. It's kind of people playing parts, sending them in. There's really not a lot of like guys in a room creating music, writing songs, playing together. It was more of just kind of an idea, almost a gimmick. Like, let's get all the old guys back in one spot, call it Union, but everyone's just kind of phoning it in from wherever they live.
Well, actually, no. That
Oh, good.
really
Okay.
wasn't it. It was a follow-up album originally started for Anderson Bruford Wakeman Howe.
Okay.
Concept. The John formed after the Big Generator
Yeah.
thing, and so they were recording in Europe and London and whatever, and the four of us, Alan, Chris, Trevor, and myself, we all lived in Los Angeles. It was the West. It was called the West Coast Yes, and nobody really knew what we were doing, and the East Coast Yes were recording an album. So we were actually rehearsing and trying to find a new lead singer. John was, not going to be in the band. Roger Hodgson came to play with us, and a couple of people. Roger from Supertramp, and we were just writing. And Trevor was recording at his studio. He had a studio, and he was just writing and recording. And then someone had the bright idea of I think there was dysfunction in the recording of the East Coast. Yes. I don't think
interesting. Okay.
particularly working really great. And I think probably someone like Clive Davis, who was sort of instigated the coming together of the two things. And Clive was a particular fan of Trevor Rabin, so he was interested in doing that. But I mean, if you listen to the album, I mean, it's two different things.
Yeah, it is.
Two different bands, and
Yeah.
and actually, for the Yes fans, they weren't particularly fond of the East Coast band because a lot of the parts were replaced by other people.
Okay.
I mean, Billy's brother, he played a lot of keyboards on Union, and
Interesting.
it was slightly dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really a project that was gonna probably mean anything.
Right.
Except someone had the bright idea of putting all of these people on stage at the same time.
Was the tour fun at least? No.
Which was probably the best brainwave that this person ever had. So, with the inducement of money, we were encouraged to fly to Florida, to Pensacola, and rehearse.
Wow.
Of course, no one knew what the hell was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just happened that everyone was totally into it.
Yeah.
And we got, I didn't know Rick. I'd never met Rick. And we just got on really well together.
That's great.
Bill and Alan, of course, got on well together. And we started rehearsing, and the band started sounding really good.
That's great.
There were all these people playing 70s music, 80s music, the new album, a couple of tracks from the new album, and everyone was loving it.
So true in the prize, would you wait for me? Oh, because you got burnt, so you took what you needed. Some will always turn away, say it's reason enough. It's another game of exploration. Something goes out reverse and it comes to you. Experience everything as it comes true. So simple behind, simple happens. See, can you feel it? All is complete. Don't you want the world to stop short of giving? Any time of night or day, the magic brings you love. Everybody hurts.
That's great. Wow. It worked out.
And the toll, it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone was really, no one could believe that it was going to be that successful.
No.
And, it was in the round. It was, like the old days, like the 70s, and Rick was there, Steve was there, Bill was there, we were all there. It was it was pretty magical
That's
in
great.
a lot of ways.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you saying this, so my understand talk, I like the talk album, but it feels a little like who was really clamoring for an expensive, big sounding Yes album in 1994? I don't know if anyone was. And The Calling is one of my favorite Yes songs. I love it.
In the beginning is the future, and the future is at hand. I'll be calling voices of Africa, be the rhythm to the plan. From the Congo to Malaysia, be the writing on the wall. I'll be calling the colors of India, see the Asian light explode. Heading to the headlights, don't turn from the rain. There's a fire raging somewhere near, like a long-time friend. We see it quiet than heavily. Take off on the turnpike, asking for the first call. All the same, asking for the fire burning in my heart again. I've been calling the dragons of China.
But you say, and I've always thought, why was so much money thrown at getting Yes another album out there when the times had changed so much? But you talking about the success of this tour, and I'm thinking, okay, now I kind of I understand a little bit that labels are like, well, put these guys on tour, and they generate tons of revenue, and the music is still strong. Let's go all in on one more album and continue to ride this out. But it didn't work out that way. Is that kind of what happened now?
Well, it was the inspiration of Phil Carson, who had previously worked for Atlantic Records, who the band had been with a long time, and was the person who originally signed the band. Besides Arnott, it was Phil Carson in England who originally signed the band. He formed a record label. And he really was the instigator of, getting that 80s band to record another album, instigated by Trevor Rabin. And actually, there was not a lot of money involved. And we were still, that band was still living in Los Angeles. So we were, pretty much together. John and Trevor really made an effort to get together and write.
Yeah.
It was destined to be, I think, an interesting album, except it was recorded at Trevor's studio, which at that time, especially, I know he expanded the studio, but at that time was not really set up to, for a band to play all together. So a lot of it was recorded separately. I don't think the band is, well, probably, you could say that about most bands, have everyone in a room playing is probably the most creative way to record. And I do think the album somewhat suffered, because of that.
Yeah, I like it.
I was there. I was there every day.
Right, that's great.
I know. Also, it was the beginning of Digital Performer. It was the first time that Trevor had used Digital Performer, that a band had recorded with this Digital Performer. So it was a whole new entity that we had to deal with.
Right. Now you chose not to appear at the Hall of Fame ceremony. Why?
reasons, I guess. Well, I don't know about the main one. I was very unhappy that that Peter had not been included. You know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is supposed to indict the original band,
Yeah.
and they chose not to. You know, bands are indicted, and they get, you know, people they haven't seen each other in 15, 20 years, and they all get together, and you know, I mean, that's what happens, and for some reason he was not invited to be inducted. I thought it was a travesty, really.
Right.
I mean, he should have been.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no ifs and buts. He was the original guitar player, you know, and to get, and so, I mean, so that didn't go down too well with me. And secondly, you know, the band were, when it happened, there were two bands. There were two actual working bands. And I thought, you know, this is not going to be that friendly.
Right.
I can't see.
Yeah.
There were the band the Steve's band that is now, would try to stop Anderson, Rabin, and Wakeman from using Yes. You know, because there was a lawsuit going down, and and I thought, you know, I don't really think that I want to be a part of this.
Yeah,
This is not,
I get it.
This is not really the way that I imagined it.
Right.
But it was great. The band.
Well, you're there.
And,
Do you have a statuette on a wall somewhere?
I got it. Yeah, I got it. I got it right here. My Grammy was stolen, unfortunately.
Oh.
So yes, I got robbed in Los Angeles, and they took my gold albums and my Grammy.
Oh.
Which was, not a good thing. I'm
That
still waiting for
sucks.
them to replace it.
Right.
You know, I had thankfully, my lovely wife organized a party for me the night of the Grammys, and we basically invited everyone that we knew in Los Angeles, and we had a great time. So
yeah. Well, good.
So it didn't matter.
One of my listeners, Philip Hopwood, when I told him that we have Patreon supporters, and when I sent it out to let him know who I'm interviewing, some people provide questions. He was curious about your work with Billy Sherwood. You guys as Circa is Circa still an active thing? Do you just play when you feel like it? How does your relationship carry on today?
Well, you know, when we first started, I think in I don't know, 2008 or maybe later. Obviously, you know, Billy wasn't playing in the band at that point. I was completely retired. I was not playing at all. He basically badgered me into coming to his studio and playing, and gradually we got Alan White involved, and gradually it became Circa and a real thing. We didn't really intend to tour. We just wanted to be in the studio. Billy's very much a studio,
Okay.
crazy cat, and
Yeah.
he loves, he loves creating. He loves writing. He loves creating. He loves playing. Of course, he plays drums, keyboards, guitar, as well as being an amazing bass player. So. He's just a workaholic, and he just dragged me and by my behind into the studio and wouldn't let me go. And we've done some pretty nice albums, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Over the years, and we're in the middle of recording a new one now. So,
Oh, good. That's
it
great.
continues. Yeah,
Good.
it continues.
Okay. First of all, is it true that you sold your Yes royalties for $10,000?
Yes, I sold the royalties on the first three albums,
Okay.
and it was really, what I wanted to come to America, and it was the way to do that.
Okay.
Eventually I got them back, but of
Okay,
course
good.
I lost. I definitely lost quite a lot of money on.
Yeah, you co-wrote Yours Is No
royalties.
Disgrace. So that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I still had my publishing royalties.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And
So
then
that was cool.
yeah, well, at least you got it back. That's good. Okay, last question. We barely talked about Detective. I find Michael DeBar to be a really fascinating character because I feel like he's somebody who had the look, had the sound, had the talent, and all of his musical endeavors never quite kicked off like they should have. There's whether it's Detective or Checkered Past or Silverhead, he should have been a rock star and never quite made it. Not all the way. What was it like working with Michael in Detective?
Well, Michael is just unique. He's a
Yeah.
unique character, and he is the epitome of rock and roll.
Yeah.
And you could never take that away from him. And actually, really was a bored actor. He's an actor,
He is. Yeah, he's great at it.
which is most of his success is in the acting world, and that's what he loves to do. But he's a rock and roller and would have loved to have been in a big rock and roll band. Of course, he was in Power Station, yes,
Yeah.
Robert Palmer, and so he got to he has got to enjoy a lot about the rock and roll world, but you could apply that to a lot of people in a lot of different creative professions,
Yeah. True.
or tennis. There's 1,000 tennis players that should,
Good point.
that should have made it.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 actors who have gone through the mill in Hollywood who probably shouldn't. There's only you have to be really lucky to become really successful.
Yeah.
And you should really appreciate it, when it happens to you. So I don't think Michael has any regrets.
Good.
At least not that I know of. And he's just a really good. He's a deep deep guy. He's a deep thinker.
I
And
love him.
very smart,
Yeah.
very intelligent, and good man.
Did you enjoy making that music? Was that or I mean, it didn't last very long, unfortunately, but were you all in on that project?
Everybody wants to be recognized. Doesn't matter what you've done. Some people find it on a big silver screen. Some find it behind a shotgun. A small young girl downtown South. She saw a starlet in a movie house. She left her mama to stake a big clay. Poor little girl, never gonna be the same. Recognition.
No.
Huh.
I was more of a guest in, because
Okay.
Detective existed, and of course was signed by Swan Song, and Zeppelin loved them,
Yeah.
and they actually sounded a lot like Zeppelin in
They
a lot
did.
of ways.
Hmm.
So actually, the keyboards never really entirely fitted in, with the band, with the music. But I enjoyed it. They were, everyone in the band was fun.
Okay.
Bobby Pickett, we're still friends, and John Hyde, of course.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Michael Monick, and of course I don't live there anymore, so sort of
Yeah. True.
don't see these people.
What? Speaking of not living there anymore, what do you do every day? What does Tony Kaye do every day? Is he fully retired? Is he making music? How do you make a living? Or do you just live off the royalties from your rock career?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
I live
Deservedly
on
so, by the
royalties,
way.
and,
Yeah.
there. I moved to a beautiful place. It's just a fabulous place to live. And of course, before COVID, there's a lot of creative music things, and theater and acting stuff here. It was actually a perfect place to move to in a creative way. And before COVID, I had a trio with my wife.
Mm.
And we played around, and but I just we live on the water here.
Nice. You
Boat.
live in Tampa, right?
No, a
Oh, I thought you did.
little further south.
Okay.
A little further south. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say Tom Brady
Quite a
thought
few-
enough of it
quite
to
a-
come live there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's quite a few musicians actually live here. Of course, Brian from AC/DC.
Oh, nice.
He's lived here for a while. Joe Perry's my neighbor. He lives
Really?
across the street. So
No way.
there's quite a few people actually.
That is great.
Of course,
Wow.
Patrick Moraz, he lives here too.
Really?
So the two keyboard players
That's great.
live
That's
here.
great.
Singer from Foreigner.
Okay. Oh yeah, Kelly.
there's quite a
So do you play a lot of golf or a lot
Hello,
of
Kelly.
tennis every day, or what?
Yes,
Okay.
tennis. Both
Excellent.
tennis.
Excellent. Good. What a life. You've earned it, man. You've earned it. I just want to tell you, Tony,
Yeah.
you are a key figure in some of my favorite music that's ever been made. And so thanks for all the good you've put out in the world, because it's made my life better. Thank you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. That is great. It is always very satisfying,
Yeah.
to know that you're playing and music has
Yes.
make people happy.
It did. You did it. At least
And
for me.
I hope that people get. I hope that people get the End of Innocence
Me
album
too.
and listen to it for what it is.
That's exactly how I feel.
It's
All right, gang, there you have it, Tony Kaye, Hall of Famer. I understand his reasons for not going to the Hall of Fame. I wonder if he regrets that. But anyway, the guy's a legend, and he's played on so much legendary music, he can do whatever he wants. And by all means, like I said, check out End of Innocence. This right here is a song that he actually asked me to close out the episode with. It's Flight 11. He's really proud of this particular piece of music, as he should. This is a really interesting piece of work. Now, next week's guest, as I mentioned before, we were kind of doing 3 weeks in a row of people who were doing really interesting things with synthesizers. Next week is our last guest that sort of fits that qualification, and he is a member of one of, I think, the most important bands ever, and especially the most deserving band to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that is not. They mixed punk and new wave, punk and synthesizers in a way that basically created new wave. That's my feeling. I probably just gave it all away. But anyway, that's who's coming up next week. Huge thanks, as always, to Jan the Man Malkiewicz, my right-hand man, for all that you do. Thank you, buddy, for everything. You guys, you can find us on Facebook and like our page. You can send us a message on there, or you can send us an email at thehustlepod@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter at thehustlepod. This week we should have 2 bonus episodes. One of our friends, a friend of the show, has a musical project that is absolutely interesting and ambitious. He's going to be coming on in a couple of days as a bonus episode. And I hope you've been enjoying the podcaster panels. They're really just our way of saying, thank you and we love you and checking in with our podcasting friends. We're going to do another one of those this weekend. So that will be up as soon as it's done on Sunday. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention something that didn't come up in this conversation that's really interesting. Tony started out in a band that played in Hamburg while the Beatles were there. Go check. I mean, he probably mentioned that in some other interview, and I forgot to mention it in here, or we ran out of time. But anyway, Tony's life is so rich and so interesting. You got to check it out. All right? Thanks, everybody. We love you.
I think there's mates that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked.
Which flight are you on?
I'm number 3 on flight 11.
Okay, you're in the flight attendant?
Yes. And the cockpit is not answering their phone. Our number 1 is got staff. Our first class galley flight attendant and our purser is staff. And we can't get a good cockpit. The door won't open.